Hey you guys, also Sean's here, and I'm here to finish off on Tyra Banks. I found out this part right here is hair also, so we're gonna finish off this part because that's hair too. So just gonna do it like that. I know it's, because this is, so yeah, this is also hair, and this is the neck part too. Okay, so let's get started working with Tyra Banks. Okay, um, let me play my Alice in Wonderland to help kick me off into the good divine spirit of Thanksgiving. Yes, the Thanksgiving is around the corner. Finish out.
Carol. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 12. Alice's Evidence. Here, cried Alice, quite forgetting in the flurry of the moment how large she had grown in the last few minutes, and she jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, upsetting all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below.
Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is we gotta work on her skin complexion, and just like on the other picture, we're gonna do the same on this one.
Oh, I beg your pardon, she exclaimed in a tone of great
we're
dismay,
gonna start off putting down white,
them up again as quickly as she could.
then we're gonna put
When the
down
accident of
yellow,
the goldfish kept running in her
then we're gonna
head,
put down
and she had a
gold,
vague sort of idea that they must be collected at once
and
put back
then
into the jury
we'll
box,
add
or
some
they would die.
shading here and there
The
when
trial
that's
cannot
necessary.
proceed, said the king
But
in a
right
very
now, we're
grave
just going
voice,
to work on
until
the
all the jurymen
color
are
of her
back in their
skin right
proper
here.
places. All, he repeated with
So
great
I'm gonna take
emphasis, looking hard at
this
Alice
little
as he
bitty
said so.
gold out, little
Alice
bitty
looked at the
gold.
jury box and saw that, in her haste, she had put the lizard
I
in
might
head
gonna need this
downwards,
black
and the
enough
poor
for
little thing
sure.
was waving its tail about in a melancholy way, being quite unable to move. She soon got it out again and put it right. Not that it signifies much, she said to herself. I should think it would be quite as much use in the trial one way up as the other. As soon as the jury had a little recovered from the shock of being upset, and their slates and pencils had been found and handed back to them, they set to work very diligently to write out a history of the accident, all except the lizard, who seemed too much overcome to do anything but sit with its mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court. What do you know about this business? The king said to Alice. Nothing, said Alice.
Okay, so I got my white premier color right.
That's very important,
Let's go.
the king said.
Make sure you be careful, so you don't smudge.
Down on their slates when the white rabbit interrupted. Unimportant, your majesty means, of course, he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. Unimportant, of course I meant, the king hastily said, and went on to himself in an undertone. Important, unimportant, unimportant, important, as if he were trying which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote it down important and some unimportant. Alice could see this, as she was near enough to look over their slates. But it doesn't matter a bit, she thought to herself. At this moment the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, cackled out, "Silence!" and read out from his book, "Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high to leave the court." Everybody looked at Alice. "I'm not a mile high," said Alice. "You are," said the king.
Okay, so I got the white down. Next step is the yellow.
"Well, I shan't go at any rate," said Alice. "Besides, that's not a regular rule. You invented
I'm
it
using
just
the
now."
premier color yellow.
"It's the oldest rule in the book," said the king. "Then it ought to be number 1, said Alice. The king turned pale and shut his notebook hastily. "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. "There's more evidence to come yet, please your majesty," said the white rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. "This paper has just been picked up." "What's in it?" said the queen. "I haven't opened it yet," said the white rabbit, "but it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody." "It must have been that," said the king, unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know. Who is it directed to? Said one of the jurymen. It isn't directed at all, said the White Rabbit. In fact, there's nothing written on the outside. He unfolded the paper as he spoke and added, It isn't a letter after all. It's a set of verses. Are they in the prisoner's handwriting? Asked another of the jurymen. No, they're not, said the White Rabbit, and that's the queerest thing about it. The jury all looked puzzled. He must have imitated somebody else's hand, said the king. The jury all brightened up again. Please, your majesty, said the knave, I didn't write it, and I can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end. If you didn't sign it, said the king, that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. There was a general clapping of hands at this. It was the first really clever thing the king had said that day. That proves his guilt, said the queen.
Now I'm gonna use this gold, the Premier Cut gold. I had went on to order some new Premier colors because this gold right here is very important. Very important. I know this when it's dealing with African skin for my taste. You know. So I went on order this other than the crazy art. I could just get the crazy art out of Walmart.
He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her one, they gave him two, you gave us three or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she likes him best, for this must ever be a secret, kept from all the rest, between yourself and me. That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So now let the jury. If any one of them can explain it, said Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting you. 6 minutes. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates, She doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. But none of them attempted to explain the paper. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a world of trouble, you know, as we needn't try to find any. And yet I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with one eye. I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim. You can swim, can't you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. Do I look like it? He said. Which he certainly did not, being made entirely of cardboard. All right so far, said the king, and he went on muttering over the verses to himself. We know it to be true. That's the jury, of course. I gave her one, they gave him two. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know. But it goes on. They all returned from him to you, said Alice. Why, there they are, said the king triumphantly, pointing to the tarts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit. You never had fits, my dear, I think, he said to the queen. Never, said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. The unfortunate little Bill had left off writing on his slate with one finger, as he found it made no mark, but now he hastily began again using the ink that was trickling down his face, as long as it lasted. Then the words don't fit you, said the king, looking round the court with a smile. There was a dead silence. It's a pun, the king added in an offended tone, and everybody laughed. Let the jury consider their verdict, the king said, for about the 20th time that day. No, no, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentence first. replied this time. You are nothing but a pack of cards. At this, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her. She gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her
I'm using
face.
the Premier Color White to try to
Wake up, Alice dear, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had.
add a highlight to it.
Oh, I've had such a curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, It was a curious dream, dear, certainly, but now run into your tea. It's getting late. So Alice got up and ran on, thinking while she ran, as well she might, what a wonderful dream it had been.
That was
Her
crazy.
sister sat still just as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures.
Okay, so
Till she too began dreaming after a fashion, and this was her dream. First, she
I'm
dreamed
gonna
of
put
little
some
Alice herself, and once again the tiny hands
gray
were clasped
around
upon
her
knee,
eyes,
and the bright,
since she
eager
got gray
eyes were
around her
looking up into
crease.
hers. She could hear the very tones of her voice and see that queer little toss of her head to keep back the wandering air that would always get into her eyes. And still as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole place around her became alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream. The long grass rustled at her feet as the white rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighboring pool. She could hear the rattle of the teacups as the March Hare and his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voice of the Queen ordering
I'm
off
gonna
her
take the
unfortunate
Premier
guests
Color
to
Black and
execution.
go around here too.
Once more the pink baby was sneezing on the Duchess's knee, while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more the shriek of the griffin, the squeaking of the lizard's slate pencil, and the choking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sobs of the miserable
They got me a
mockingbird.
little bit more
So she sat
gray
on
right
with
here.
closed eyes and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she hadn't got to open them again, when all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds.
I'm gonna use this
Teacups would change to tinkling sheep bells, and
toasted
leaves shrill cries to the voice of the shepherd boy,
toffee to
and the
help
sneeze of the
bring out
baby,
the
the shriek
details
of
a
the
lot
griffin,
more.
and all the other queer noises would change, she knew, to the confused clamor of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would take the place of the mock turtle's heavy sobs. Lastly, she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers would, in the aftertime, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep, through all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children, make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows, and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. The end.
That's the end. So let me change
Alice's
this.
Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Read by Kara Schallenberg.
Well, I guess I could listen to
www.kray.org. In March
Alice in
2010
Wonderland.
in San Diego, California.
No, I don't want to listen to more Alice. I'm just something else. Let me see. The Time Machine. Oof.
The Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
That was the first book I ever bought on my own. The Time Machine. And let me tell you something. Every book that I bought after that did not compare. Did not compare whatsoever. Did not compare whatsoever.
Our chairs, being his pebbles, embraced and caressed us rather than submitted to be sat upon.
Okay, so now I'm going to
After dinner atmosphere, when thought rose gracefully free of the trammels of precision.
Let me see.
this way, arguing points will be for as we sat and lazily admired his earnestness over his new paradox, as we thought, and his fecundity.
I'm going to get the Crayola white. And this is what I'm going to use to smooth everything out with. If you ever need something to smooth out, I ain't gonna lie, for me, the Crayola white is the best. And make sure you don't smudge nothing, anything. I could have just left it plain and simple, but I felt like experimenting. So I feel like experimenting.
A solid body may exist for real things, so most people think. But wait a moment, can that instantaneously exist? Don't follow me, said Bill. Even a cube that does not last for any time have a real existence. Bill advanced. Clearly, the time traveler proceeded. Any real body must have extension in four directions. It must have length.
Try not to smudge once again. Try not to smudge.
But when natural infirmity of flesh, which I'll explain to you in a moment, we incline to overlook this fact. There are really four dimensions, three which we call the three planes of space, and a fourth, time. There is, however, a tendency to draw an unreal distinction between the former three dimensions and the latter, because it happens that our consciousness moves intermittently in one direction, along the latter from the beginning to the end of our lives. That, said a very young man, making spasmodic efforts to relight his cigar over the lamp. That's very clear indeed. Now, it is very remarkable that this is so extensively overlooked. Continued the time
I need to take a break for a moment.
of cheerfulness. Really, this is what is meant by the fourth dimension. Though some people who talk about the fourth dimension do not know they mean it. It is only another way of looking at time. There is no difference between time and any of
I
the
need to sharpen this too.
except that our consciousness moves along it. But some foolish people have got hold of the wrong side of that idea. You have all heard what they have to say about this fourth dimension. I have not, said the provincial mayor. It is simply this, that space, as our mathematicians have it, is spoken of as having three dimensions, which one may call length, breadth, and thickness, and is always divided by reference to three planes, each at right angles to the others. But some philosophical people have been asking, why three dimensions particularly? Why not another direction at right angles to the other three? And have even tried to construct a four-dimension geometry. Professor Simon Newcomb was expounding this to the New York Mathematical Society only a month or so ago. You know how on a flat surface, which has only two dimensions, we can represent a figure of a three-dimensional solid. Similarly, we think that by models of three dimensions, they could represent one of four, if they could master the perspective of the thing. See? I think so, murmured the provincial mayor, and knitting his brows, he lapsed into an introspective state, his lips moving as one repeats distant words. Yes, I think I see it now, he said after some time, writing in a quite transitory manner. Well, without my telling you, I have been at work upon this geometry in four dimensions for some time. Some of my results are curious. For instance, here's a portrait of a man at 8 years old, another at 15, another at 17, another at 23, and so on. All these are evidently sections, as it were, three-dimensional representations of his four-dimensioned being.
Now I'm gonna go put some little blush right here because she had a little blush, just a hint of blush. Not too much.
For the proper assimilation of this. You know very well that time is only a kind of space. Here is a popular scientific diagram, a weather record. This line I trace with my finger shows the movement of the barometer. Yesterday it was so high. Yesterday night it fell. Then this morning it rose again, and so gently upwards here. Surely the mercury did not trace this line in any of the dimensions of space generally recognized, but certainly it traced such
I'm using the
that line, therefore,
pink
must have
rose
moved
Premier
along the time
color.
dimension. But, said the medical man, staring hard at a coal-lit fire, if time is really only a fourth dimension of space, why is it, and why has it always been, regarded as something different? And why cannot we move in time as we move about in
Let
the
me
other
get the
dimensions
crazy
of
out
space?
white again and just
Time
blend it all
travelers
out.
smile. Are you sure we can move freely in space? Right and left we can move, backward and forward freely enough, and men always have done so. I admit we move freely in two dimensions, but how about up and down? Gravitation limits us there. Not exactly, said the medical man. There are balloons. But before the balloons, say for specified jumping and the inequalities of the surface, man had no freedom of vertical movement. Still, they could move a little up and down.
Okay, so now I need to work on her eyes.
Easier down than up. And you cannot move at all in time. You cannot get away from the present moment. My dear sir, that is just where you are wrong.
Try to make sure I didn't
Just where the whole
color the
world
back
has gone
of it.
wrong. We are always getting away
I
from the
don't
present
know
moment.
what color eyes she got. I think it's hazel. I don't know if it's a real eyes or it's a fake eyes, but I'm just gonna put it in brown
Just as we should travel down if we begin
because I
our
don't even
existence
have
50 miles above the
hazel.
Earth's
I don't
surface.
believe I do.
But the great difficulty is this, interrupted the psychologist. You can move about in all directions of space, but you cannot move about in time. That is the germ of my great discovery. But you are wrong to say that we cannot move about in time. For instance, if I am recalling an incident very vividly, I go back to the instant of its occurrence. I become absent-minded, as you say. I jump back for a moment. Of course, we have no means of staying back for any length of time.
And I want to add a little green to it too.
6 feet above the ground. But a civilized man is better off than the savage in this respect. He can go up against gravitation in a balloon. And why should we not hope that, ultimately, he may be able to stop or accelerate his drift along the time dimension, or even turn about and travel the other way? Oh,
This is the crazy odd green. I don't know what color green it is, but
it's against reason, said Philby. What reason? Said the time traveler. You can show black as white by argument, said Philby, but you will never convince me. Possibly not, said the time traveler. But now you begin to see
I don't think this green is working too good. Let's try this green. This is a light green. I think I'm gonna try the Premier color green. Then again, I don't know. This green look pretty nice with it. Get this white right here. The crazy art white. Okay, so this is how I'm gonna leave her eyes. And what else? Excuse me for shaking the camera too. Let's work on the hair. The hair. So on the hair part, I'm gonna put brown down.
In which case, they would certainly plow you for the little go. The German scholars have improved Greek so much. Then there's the future.
I just gotta figure out what kind of brown.
Just think, one might invest all one's money, leave it to accumulate an interest, and hurry on ahead.
I put the premier color dark brown. Put that down first.
Of all the wild, extravagant theories, began the psychologist. Yes, so it seemed to me.
But I'm not gonna put it on her whole hair. I'm just gonna put it on certain areas of her hair.
Verification, cried I. You were going to verify that? The experiment, cried Philby, who was getting brain weary. Let us see your experiment anyhow, said the psychologist. No, it's all humbug, you know. The time traveler smiled round at us, then, still smiling faintly, and with his hands deep in his trousers pockets, he walked slowly out of the room, and we heard his slippers shuffling down the long passage to his laboratory. The psychologist looked at us. I wonder what he's got. Some sleight of hand trick or other, said the medical man, and Philby tried to tell us about a conjurer he had seen in person. But before he had finished his preface, the time traveler came back, and Philby's anecdote collapsed. The thing the time traveler held in his hand was a glittering metallic framework, scarcely larger than a small clock, very elegantly made. There was ivory in it, and some transparent crystalline substance. And now I must be explicit, for this that follows, unless his explanation is to be accepted, is an absolutely unaccountable thing. He took one of the small octagonal tables that were scattered about the room, and set it in front of the fire, with two legs on the hearth. On this table, he placed the mechanism. Then he drew up a chair and sat down. The only other object on the table was a small shaded lamp, the bright light of which fell upon the model. There were also perhaps a dozen candles around, two big brass candlesticks upon a mantel, and several ensconces, so that the room was really illuminated. I sat in a low armchair nearest the fire, and drew this forward so as to be almost between the time traveler and the fireplace. Philby sat behind him, looking over his shoulder. The medical man and the provincial mayor watched
Now,
him
since I did this, I'm gonna get
the psychologist from the left.
grab.
The very young man stood behind the psychologist. We were
I'm gonna
all
grab this
on
gold
edge.
again,
It appears he
and I'm gonna
cleverly
use this gold to finish out her hair.
however suddenly conceived, and however adroitly done, would have been played upon us under these conditions. The time traveler looked at us, and then at the mechanism.
Then again, I might want to switch it up from the gold to
Said the time traveler,
something
resting his
else. I
elbows
don't
upon
know.
the
Let me
table,
finish this out
pressing his hands
first.
together upon the apparatus. He's only a model. It is like planet or machine traveling through time. You will notice that it looks singularly askew, and that there is an odd twinkle that turns about this far, as though it was in some way unreal. Pointed to the part with his finger. Also, here is one little white lever, and here is another. The medical man got up out of his chair, peered into the thing. It's beautifully made, he said. It took 2 years to make it, reported the time traveler. Then, they all imitated the action of the medical man, he said. Now, I want you to understand that this lever, fixed over, sends the machine gliding into the future, and this other reverses motion. Its saddle represents the seat of a time travel. Presently, I am going to press the lever, and off the machine will go. It will vanish, pass into future time, and disappear. Have a good look at the thing. Look at the table, too, and satisfy yourselves. There is no trickery. I don't want to waste this spot and be told of a fire. There was a minute's pause, perhaps. The psychologist seemed about to speak to me, but changed his mind. Then the time traveler put forth his finger towards the lever. No, he said suddenly. Let me your hand. And turning to the psychologist, he took that
Trying to see, do I
in his
want
own
this yellow up in
and
here?
put out his forefinger,
Do I want this
so
yellow?
that it was the psychologist
I know I
himself
want some
who
more of
set
the
forth
dark
the long
brown. I
time
want to put
machine
some more of the
on its
dark brown
eternal
on
voyage.
here.
We all saw the lever turn. I am absolutely certain there was no trickery. There was a breath. The lamp range opened. One of the candles on the mantel was blown out. laughed cheerfully. Well, he said, with a reminiscence of the psychologist. Then, getting up, went to the tobacco jar on the mantel, and with his spectacles began to fill his pipe. We stared at each other. Look here, said the medical man. Are you in earnest about this? You seriously believe that that machine has traveled into time? Certainly, said the time traveler, stooping to light a spill in the fire. Then he turned, lighting his pipe, to look at the psychologist's face. The psychologist, to show that he was not unhinged, helped himself to a cigar and tried to light it uncut. What is more, I have a big machine nearly finished in there, he indicated the laboratory, and when that is put together, I need to have a journey on my own account. You mean to say that that machine has traveled into the future, said Philippe. Into the future or the past, I know for certain no which. After an interview, the psychologist had an inspiration. It must have gone into the past, if it has gone anywhere, he said. Why? Said the time traveler. Because I presume that it has not moved in space. If it traveled into the future, it would still be here all this time, since it must have traveled through this time. But, I said, if it traveled into the past, it would have been visible when we came first into this room, and last Thursday when we were here, and the Thursday before that, and so forth. Serious objections, remarked the provincial mayor, with an air of impartiality, turning towards the time traveler. Not a bit, said the time traveler, and to the psychologist. You think you can explain that? It's presentation below threshold, you know, diluted presentation. Of course, said the psychologist, and reassured us. That's a simple point of psychology. I should have thought of it. It's plain enough and helps the paradox to life. We cannot see it, nor can we appreciate this machine any more than we can the smoke of a wheel spinning, or a bullet flying through the air. If it is traveling through time 50 times or 100 times faster than we would, if it gets through a minute while we get through a second, the impression it creates
I'm just
will of course
experimenting
be
with
only
it here.
150 or 100 what it would make if it were not traveling it. That's plain enough. He passed his hand through the space in which the machine had been. You see, he said, laughing. He sat and stared at the vacant table for a minute or so. Then the time traveler asked
I like the
himself,
way her
quietly,
hair is going.
it sounds plausible enough tonight, said the medical man. But wait until tomorrow. Wait for the common sense of the morning. Would you like to see the time machine itself? Asked the time traveler. And therewith, taking the lamp in his hand, he led the way down the long, drafty corridor to his laboratory. I remember vividly the flickering light, his queer, broad head inside, the dance of the shadows, how we all followed him, puzzled but incredulous, and how, there in the laboratory, we beheld a larger edition of the little mechanism which we had seen vanish from before our eyes. Parts were of nickel, parts of iron, parts had certainly been filed, sawn out of rock crystal. The things jittery beneath, but the twisted crystal and bars lay unfinished upon the bench beside some sheets of drawings, and I took one out for a better look at. Words had seemed to me. Look here, said the medical man. Are you perfectly serious? Or is this a trick, like that ghost you showed us last Christmas? On that machine, said the time traveler, holding the lamp aloft.
I think that's all I'm gonna do for her hair. Now I'm gonna work on her
I was
eyebrows.
my life. None of us quite knew how to take it. I caught Philby's eye over the shoulder of the medical man, equally solemn. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2. I think that at the time, none of us quite believed in the time machine. The fact is, the time traveler was one of those men who were too clever to be believed. You never felt that you saw all round him. You always suspected some subtle reserve, some
I'm gonna lightly put the
But the
dark
time
brown
traveler
on here.
had more than a touch of him among his elements, and we distrusted him. Things that would have made the frame of a less clever man seemed tricks in his hands. It is a mistake to do things too easily. The serious people who took him seriously never
Now
felt
get the
quite
crazy
sure
art
he was to
white to
work.
help blend it out.
They were somehow aware that trusting their reputations for judgment with him was like furnishing a nursery with eggshell china. So, I didn't think any of us said very much about time traveling in the interval between that Thursday and the next, though its odd potentialities ran,
All
no
right.
doubt, in most of our minds. Its plausibility, that is. Its
Now
practical
I'm going to
incredibles.
work on her
The
lips.
various possibilities of
She had
actors,
peach
and
on
the
her
muttered
lip. That would
confusion it
look like
suggested.
peach.
For my
So
own
that's why I'm
part,
gonna put down
I was
peach.
particularly
And probably pink
preoccupied
too.
with the trick of the bottle. That I remember discussing with the medical man, whom I met on Friday at the Linnaean. He said he'd seen a similar thing at Tübingen and laid considerable stress on the pulling out of
I'm gonna
the
put the
animal,
pink on
but
first.
how the trick was done he could not explain. The next Thursday I went again to Richmond. I suppose I was one of the time traveler's most constant guests,
Now
and
putting
arriving
down the
late,
peach.
found 4 or 5 men already assembled in his drawing room. The medical man was standing before the fire with a sheet of paper in one hand and
And I
his
want to
watch in
try
the
to
other.
put down just a little
I looked around
brown.
for the time traveler,
The
and "It's
toasted
7:30 now,"
uh
said the medical man. "I
toffee
suppose we better
toasted.
have
I'm gonna
dinner."
put that down too.
"Where's," said I, naming our host. "You've just come?" "It's rather odd. He's unavoidably detained. He asks me in this note to lead off with dinner at 7 if he's not back. Says he'll explain when he comes.
Now I'm gonna get this
It
crazy art
seems a
white
pity to
and
let the dinner spoil,"
just moving on
said
out.
the editor of a well-known daily paper, and thereafter the doctor rang the bell. The psychologist was the only person besides the doctor and myself who had attended the previous dinner. The other men were blank, the editor aforementioned,
It's not like
a
the
certain
exact color
journalist, and
of the
another
picture
who
on
played shy man
the
with a
color
beard,
that she had
I
on the
could tell,
picture,
and
but
who,
it's something
as
that I
far
just
as my
wanted to do.
observation went, never opened his mouth all the evening.
And let's see, what else can
Some
we work on?
speculation at the
The
dinner
head.
table
Let's go
about the
and
time
fill in the
traveler's
head.
absence, and I suggested time
Let's fill the
travel
head
in
in
a half-jocular
with
spirit.
the yellow.
The editor wanted that explained to me, and the psychologist volunteered to put in account of the ingenious paradox and trick he
Let's
had
fill the head
used that
in with the
evening.
yellow.
He was in the midst of his exposition when the door from the corridor opened slowly, without noise. I was facing the door and saw it first. "Hello," I said.
I like
"At
my
last,"
cartoon
when the door
of
opened
Tyra
wide
Banks.
and
I
the
think
time
she looks
traveler
pretty,
stood
pretty,
before us.
pretty,
I gave a cry of
beautiful.
surprise. "Good
I like
heavens,
it
man,
when I
what's the
get
matter?" cried the medical man, who
put
saw him
makeup on
next.
there because I
The
can't
whole
wear makeup.
tableful turned
It's
towards the
bad on
door.
my skin.
He was in an amazing plight. His coat
You
was
know,
dusty and dirty,
if
and
I
it
put
smeared
makeup on my
freely down the
face,
sleeves.
it would
His
cause
hair
it would come
disordered,
against my
and as it
autoimmune
seemed to be
disease
frayed,
and cause the
I didn't
pores to
dust the
open up
dirt
on my face.
because its color had
So
actually faded. His face was
I'm
ghastly
leaving,
grey,
I'm not
his
trying to
chin
do all of
had a
that.
brown
So
cut on it, a cut half hidden. His expression was haggard and drawn, as by intense suffering. For a moment he hesitated in the doorway, as if he had been dazzled by the light. Then he came into the room. He walked with just such a limp as I have seen in footsore tramps. I stared at him in silence, expecting him to speak. He said not a word, but came painfully to the table and made a motion towards the wine. The editor filled a glass of champagne and pushed it towards him. He drained it, and it seemed to do him good, for he looked round the table, and the ghost of his old smile
so I
flickered
got the
across his
head all
face.
filled in. Now I just need. I think her
"What on
dress is
earth have
black.
you been up to, man?"
I'm not for
said the
sure it's
doctor.
black, so I'm
The
just gonna
time
fill it
traveler
in
did
with
not
black.
seem to hear. "Don't let me disturb you," he said, with a certain
Let's see
faltering
what this do.
articulation. "I'm
Yeah,
only—"
that'll do.
He stopped,
I'm
pulled out his
using
glass of
the
water, and took it off at a draught.
crazy
"That's
art,
good," he said.
not
His
crazy
eyes
art,
grew
the
brighter,
premier
and a
color
faint color came into his
black
cheeks. His
on her
glance lingered
dress.
over our faces
I think it's too dark,
then went round the block
but it'll
and out the
do.
door. Then he spoke again, still as it were feeling his way among his words. I'm going to wash and dress, and then I'll come down and explain things. Save me some of that mutton. I'm starving for a bit of meat. He looked across at the editor, who was a rare visitor, and hoped he was all right. The editor began a question. Tell you presently, said the time traveler. I'm funny. I'll be right in a minute. He put down his clippers and walked towards the staircase door. Again, I remarked his leanness and the soft panting sound of his footfall. And standing up in my place, I saw his feet as he went out. He had nothing on him but a pair of tattered, blood-stained socks. Then the door closed upon him. I had half a mind to follow, till I remembered how he detested any fuss about himself. For a minute, perhaps, my mind was full gathered. Then, with remarkable behavior of an eminent scientist, I heard the editor say, thinking, after his watch, in headlines. And this brought my attention back to the bright dinner table. What's the game? Said the journalist. Has he been doing the amateur catcher? I don't follow. I met the eye of the psychologist and read my own interpretation in his face. I thought of the time traveler limping painfully upstairs. I don't think anyone
And
else had
this
noticed
is
his
my
weakness.
cartoon.
But first,
Uh,
leaping from this surprise, was the medical man
Something
who
came up
rang the
on my
bell.
screen.
For the time traveler
This is my
needed that
cartoon
service
of
immediately,
Tyra Banks.
or hot plate.
I hope you guys enjoyed
At
it.
that,
I'm gonna
he
get
returned to
close
the
up.
stifling fork with a grunt,
Tyra,
and the silent men followed
Tyra
suit.
Banks.
The dinner was resumed.